Thank you, folks. As the credits roll, it gives me great pleasure to bring out directors and producers Trish Adlesic. Trish, thank you so much. And Marissa Heringer. You will get microphones, don't worry. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. Can I start by asking, where did this start? How did this project evolve?
It started with Sheila Nevins. Sheila does this all the time. She was on TikTok, and she was scrolling through, and, Graceland just really caught her attention. I mean, Sheila always says it is because she said her age, first of all, and, Sheila's very proud of being, 84, and she's on TikTok.
And
she's on TikTok. And she was just so taken aback by Graceland and the fact that she, was speaking out against this and her words are so powerful. And so then it went from there, and Trish, sitting to my right, we literally were in Sheila's living room, and Sheila said, who should I call to just go out to Florida, to Martin County, to go film Grace? We need to grab her. And she called Trish. Trish was on the top of her mind, and Trish flew out like the next day.
Yeah, and I was, who can say no to Sheila Nevins? And this issue is so crucially important to protect our democracy, and all human rights are at stake here, because the books that are being banned are really denigrating our collective stories. And I flew down the next day and I met Graceland, and it turns out she was from my hometown of Pittsburgh. I had just finished doing the film at the Tree of Life synagogue shooting documentary, which is on HBO. And we started talking, and I detected a dialect, and she said, oh, I'm from Pittsburgh. And actually her daughter went to my high school, which was, talk about small world.
Yins, is that what you guys are called?
Some people say that. It's like Yinzers, they say the Yinzers. Yes, very much so. Grace is fiercely, like Sheila, fiercely devoted and committed to being on the right side of the right issues. And she's now 101. And she's as spry as ever and doing all that she can to stand against book banning. And it's tough. In Florida, it's really aggressive. I mean, nationwide, we have book banning in up to 40 states now. When we finished the film in 2023 in August, there were 2,000 banned books in America. There currently are 6,000. Yeah. So it is quite concerning. The wave of this is moving rapidly. It's largely instigated by an organization called Moms for Liberty. There are chapters in just about every state. They are very committed to the leading GOP candidate. And, there's a lot at stake. This is one of the political footballs. But intimidating children, recently, Sheila has residents in the state of Massachusetts, and recently in Great Barrington, a police officer went into a middle school looking for the book that's featured in the film Gender Queer. And it was very intimidating for the teacher. That fortunately, the kids weren't in the class, but the teacher had to take a leave of absence. And I'm not sure she's come back yet, but it sends a message to kids to be afraid of certain books. Why don't we have access to this? Some kids, fortunately, are curious and can get them in other places. But a lot of poor kids can't afford to order on Amazon. And so it's really... the right to read and having library shelves filled with books is really a great privilege and need in our society.
Marissa, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, your question was like, how did the idea really start? And Sheila also was like, why aren't we hearing from the children? Like, this is an issue that affects children, and this is the time when they're like absorbing and learning, and why aren't we hearing from them? We're only hearing from Moms for Liberty, for example. They're getting the viral videos. So that was really important that it came from the children's perspective.
And that was my next question. How did you find these brilliant kids who are clearly smarter than most adult voters out there? And how did this? Tell me about that part and how that came together.
Well, we interviewed kids from Florida to New York. When we were in Florida with Grace Lynn, we made some connections with some of the family members and community members that were supporting Grace and helping to fight the book banning that was taking place. And many of the parents said, if you want to talk to my kid, we'll bring them. And so we had a bunch of children show up, and we just handed them books that were banned and asked them what they thought about the books. They drew pictures of the books, and they shared what their thoughts were. We interviewed some of the kids are from Brooklyn. Naz, one of the co-directors, her daughter goes to the school where we went to, and those were the children that you see in the film. And I mean, we were completely blown away. Like, I don't think at the age of 10, I was able to articulate in that way. And we were really relieved in some ways that kids had this knowledge already. That even if they didn't have access to the books, they still had a pretty good understanding of, other people's experiences in life. So that was encouraging. But it was really refreshing at the same time to hear what they had to say.
Yeah, and I think that's really the point, is that kids are hearing and learning, and there are people around them that are expressing themselves. When I was younger, it wasn't even the case, and so they have to learn about it somewhat. They're gonna confront it and find out about it for themselves. So why not just give them the language to understand it?
Of course, those kids are absolutely amazing, and then you bring in the animation too, which is a whole other element that I think elevates the film and really connects back to the books themselves. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
I think what we wanted to do is give the books a voice and to show what was in the books in different ways by our reading excerpts from the books, but also bring the books to life through animation. And Sheila had a wonderful relationship with the animator from some of her other projects, and he did an interpretation of an excerpt, and it really helped connect us to the content of the book. We were judicious in what we wanted to have animated and really show. Like, for example, Rosa Parks, having Rosa Parks band, Nikki Giovanni's version of Rosa Parks. How could that be possible in this day and age? So it really was to help the viewer connect more to the stories in the books, bringing them to life through that form of visuals.
You asked this question in the movie, and I remember thinking it while I was watching, and we all know the answer, but I feel like we need to take a moment to really pause on this here, and maybe this is the question you get all the time, but are there books that you think should be banned anywhere? This is your own personal experience.
Well, I was going to quote Sheila, so now I'll have to think for myself. No, I mean, I don't, because I think that the whole point of reading is to draw your own conclusions and make your own decisions. And I think that, reading makes you smarter, right? If you read and you really immerse yourself in that, then you'll be able to make your own decisions and decide what you think is okay, that's dated. This book was written in 1960. So, okay, I'll take that with a grain of salt. And Sheila was on Scott Simon. She was on the podcast, and I remember her saying, we have to think about what Nikki Giovanni said. If you ban a book, you're giving words the power. And so, no, I don't think anything should be banned.
I would say I think that we do support age-appropriate books for kids. I don't think anything and everything should go to any age group. I think as one progresses with their education, obviously there's curriculum that goes along with the psychological development. And I think that's really important to know, because one of the rebuttals with the movement in banning is that all these books are about sexually explicit content, and it's corrupting children and, corrupting children and all these things. And so we definitely advocate for that, because we don't want to fall into that lane at all with this effort we're making. So I think that's really an important component to this conversation.
Yeah, and I would also add that, there should be conversations within classrooms. The teachers and the media specialists and the librarians are all, we should trust in them And these conversations should happen in classrooms, about the texts that they're reading, age-appropriate texts.
I completely agree, of course, and I have to say that this comes up here as adults here at the JCC. We discuss, certain films shouldn't be shown right now, and I'm a big believer that our audience could be responsible enough to have the conversations, to see another side, and actually, it's important to read things that are out of your comfort zone, or to see things that are out of your comfort zone, to challenge yourself and to see and to make a decision as an adult of what really matters, what resonates to me. I always love to see things and read things that they're telling me that I shouldn't, or represent the other side. I watch way too much Fox News for that purpose.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it's good to be outraged, right? And to not to preach to the choir. You wanna to learn from people and see their side of things.
I've already see a hand up, and I'd love to make our audience a part of this conversation. So you could all make your own decisions, and we'll pass the microphone around, which is coming right up, sir, in the middle. Thank you.
Hi. Thanks so much for the great film and the enlightenment. Of these 6,000 books, are these being banned also in libraries? And if so, who makes that call to do that?
That's a great question. It's a technical one, certainly. All that needs to happen is the parent needs to raise a concern, and it's immediately taken out of the classroom and taken out of circulation in the school library and in the school district. It really varies state by state and school district by school district, but until it's guilty until proven innocent, right? So there's a system and a process that takes place. The book immediately gets removed. They hire often an independent assessor that goes in and looks at the book and determines whether or not it should be banned, restricted, or challenged. So go ahead. No, it's primarily in schools, school districts, and school libraries. There are public libraries that are adopting some of this because in some states it's a felony to have a challenged banned book in circulation. Librarians, there was one librarian in Florida that resigned. She was so intimidated. She was about to have a nervous breakdown. She thought she was going to be charged with a felony. She didn't agree with the banned books. We had her come to one of our screenings in December. So you really have to look state by state at each district's. It's sort of like a free-for-all. Of course, the First Amendment supersedes, but at the same time, it's a long road to get to the First Amendment to protect these matters. It takes time and costs a lot of money to get a legal team to support and help solve this. But some books have, with protests, some books have come back into the circulation of the schools and the school districts, but it would require great effort to fight that, to make that happen.
Thank you for this great film. Do you think it's a long game by the people who are organizing the bannings to try to keep the next generation of kids ignorant to affect the political landscape or America in general?
Yeah.
And I wonder if they think about it that way.
I think that there's a definite component that is a remnant of the previous presidency, the intimidation of the other, and the sort of hate-fueled rhetoric that was prevalent for so long. And I think is a remnant of that in terms of the escalation of book banning. I think if you're not white or Christian, there's concerns. And I think that's sort of the model for the mindset of why people raise questions about certain books. I mean, there was a book called Dim Sum for Everyone. It was about dim sum. There was nothing in it. It was for 3-year-olds. And it was banned for a long period of time, and then it went back into circulation. But why would that be banned?
Because it's celebrating another culture.
Yeah,
that's not.
Well, it depends what restaurant it's coming from, and
right.
I personally.
But I do think that it is coming from the MAGA mindset. I mean, I really do.
Is there any chance you're really going to fight this to the Supreme Court to overturn all these bans at one point?
That we are?
Well, anything, that's,
Yeah, well, so yeah, obviously in the 1980s there was PICO and the Supreme Court at that time, and now, I mean, we've worked really closely with, the ALA and Penn America and the NCAC, and they're armed for this. They have. I mean, if anyone here wants to sort of get involved, they have a lot of really good resources, because even Justin Richardson, who wrote And Tango Makes Three with his partner, he's in the fight, and he's trying to really make sure, and hopefully it turns out well, but that's not a promise, that we will be able to keep the First Amendment, as armor for reading, for the freedom to read.
And to echo what Marissa was saying, the American Civil Liberties Union is actively involved, the American Librarian Association, the ALA, the National Coalition Against Censorship, and of course Penn America is really leading the fight. But it's an uphill battle, and it's taking a long time. And while they're trying to do everything they can, they're not-for-profits, and it's just not an overnight change. It takes months and months. But if you want to become involved, support those organizations that are leading the fight. Like donate or help them or volunteer.
Hi, thank you so much. You said that it can be overturned, but it takes a long time. Do you know how it can get overturned and a banned book can go back into circulation?
Yeah, there's a review period, but it's not designated by any particular time frame. It depends on the person they hire, the independent contractor that comes in and reviews it. The school board looks at it. It could take a few months. It could take a year or two. Some books have been banned permanently. Some have been banned a few years, and some a few months. So there are a variety of cases you can look at. But instead of just having a review, leaving the book in circulation and then reviewing it, they immediately take it out, and you'll see empty shelves that are really noticeable in a lot of these school districts.
Yeah, which is traumatic for children as well, to see their libraries with empty shelves, and then they question it.
I love this. There's so many hands up. Good. It's amazing what a short film can inspire, and
we like long conversation from short films.
First of all, I want to thank you. I am still in your tears from watching this. It is so important, and books are so important. Thank you for doing it. I also wanted to ask a question about how these assessors are chosen to make those decisions, and to also add one comment, which is, I don't know if you remember, but the Republicans had a plank trying to eliminate the goal of thinking as part of our educational curriculum, and they took it out finally because they realized how many people it might, who knows why, lose votes. I mean, it's the only reason. But I did want to know about what you know about these assessors and how they get chosen and where they are.
There's really not, unfortunately, not a lot of requirements. I mean, sometimes they're retired teachers, ministers, the school district, they maybe have the substitute teachers. They're often not really that educated and inclined to really make these assessments, unfortunately, but they say they hire an independent peer review so that it's not just some parent dictating what all of the kids get to read or not read. So, but they're often not really, they don't have the proper credentials, unfortunately, to make the final determination. So if there's a big protest, then like in Great Barrington, there was a huge protest, and there was the police chief then apologized for what the police officer did, and they brought the book back. But it's unfortunately a little bit random, and arbitrary. There's not you can't just apply for it with a great resume and lots of experience in, analyzing particular books like a psychologist would. It's just it's a random sort of free for all a little bit, actually.
Do you know what the percentages are of how the decisions, how many are keep them off the shelves versus put them back
I don't think we have
For those who
quite.
couldn't hear, it's about the percentages of how many books
Yeah.
actually get kicked off the shelf.
Those metrics are not really clear yet. I think Pen America is working very hard to get them, but oftentimes it's hard to get it because the school districts won't release the information to outside organizations. They'll release them to the parents of the kids. It depends on the jurisdiction and what they're required to do by law. They're either complying or not complying. So we're working on trying to get that information, but we don't have clear information at this time.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's important to note is that if someone doesn't want a book on the shelf, they can just look at one page in the book and it's taken out of context. And a lot of times, the president of the NCAC actually told us that the authors will, for example, the author of All Boys Aren't Blue, he knows when someone is banning a book and hasn't read the whole thing because they'll always pick page number 17. And it's, that's not the whole book. So it goes through the process, it's taken off the shelf, and then, hopefully it's put back on the shelf because it shouldn't be banned. It shouldn't be challenged. It shouldn't be restricted. But yeah.
We're just opening more and more questions. We got one right on top. Thank you.
Thank you for your film. I have a question about whether this is just happening in little, like school districts independently, so we have like thousands of little fires, or are there states where they are banning books throughout the state? Because I was just thinking from a legal perspective, that's a lot harder to deal with. If it's, thousands of fires versus, a blanket state ban.
What we know is that 40 states have book bans. So we'd have to really look and break down each state. There are cases in each state, which school district it is or how many. Off the top of my head, I don't know that specifically state by state, but Pen America has a pretty comprehensive website that you can get a lot of data. They have actually detailed reports on each state that will help you get more information on that. But we know it's up to 40 states that there are bans.
Come from, for instance, the Department of Education in a particular state, right? It's like a school district versus the state's Department of Education.
It's school district driven. Generally, it's school district driven, and in some of the states, the state school district has banned them. So largely, it's the school districts that are banning, and some states have had the states come in and also enforce the bans.
There's a lot of great questions here. We're going to take one more. I see Caroline going for this one here.
Well, hopefully it's a fun one to end on. What were your favorites among the banned books that you read?
Ooh, you need to choose between all your children.
Well, I'll say that I loved, Forever by Judy Blume, but my favorite quote, which I do want to add, Trish was, up late nights looking for quotes in books that really represented what each book, why they were banned, like what the problem was. And so from a Judy Blume book, it would be about Planned Parenthood. And my favorite quote was the one that I'm glad you all found funny, which was about, I just wasn't, I wasn't convinced that I didn't have enough data that God exists. So yeah, I think it's just a book. I love that all of these books, I can't pick a favorite necessarily, but I love that all of these books really explore all issues and really make you think, as you mentioned before. What about you, Trish?
I mean, I love all the books. I mean, we feature 47 books in the film, and they're all wonderful. I mean, they're all, like, the quotes were so much fun to pick, and we each recorded them. Sheila did some of them, I did some of them, Marissa did some, we all did some. I love them all. I mean, it's hard for me to pick one. I mean, when I grew up, I loved Judy Blume, but I also loved Nikki Giovanni, and when I read Anne Frank as a kid, I was heartbroken and really learning about hate. And I can't imagine my life if I hadn't read it. And so for it to be banned, it's crushing to me. It's really something that I find so offensive. But I think they all have their journeys, and we're all in support of them. So I can't pick just one, but I agree with Marissa. We just love them all. That's why they're all in the film.
And I wish these books were around when I was younger. Some of these books are so and Tango Makes Three. I wish they were around. I would have known to say LGBTQ plus. I learned that when I was in, middle school or high school. It's cool to see this. And, my younger cousins, they know more than me in a lot of ways. And I'll learn from them. I'm not embarrassed to learn from them.
What's amazing about this movie is, and I'm sure you're all going to do this, is now you want to read all these books that maybe we didn't have as kids, and this is we just got our reading list. These are the ones I'm going to look for. These are the ones my kids should be reading.
Yep.
And it's so diverse. You really bring in such diversity within the selections there. So good job on that and on everything else. My final question is, what should people do now? How can people share more about this film? How can people take action?
Well, you can tell everyone to watch it on Paramount Plus. It's streaming. And, hug your favorite drag queen and support the organizations that are at the forefront of this. ACLU, National Coalition Against Censorship, PEN America. There are a number of organizations in the fight. American Librarians Association. Librarians need support. We're okay in New York. There's a few cases in upstate New York, but in other states, contact your cousins, your friends in other states and find out what's happening, what you can do to support them and help them. There's a big movement in Florida, and it's spreading out across the country to try to really shut this down. So support the organizations at the forefront and tell everyone to watch the film so that people can be in the know and really be aware of what's happening.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Today, actually, Sheila was writing an email to someone, and she said, this is the necessary rage for change, ... before it's too late. So I think just be angry about it and, spread the word that books are important and should be accessible to everyone.
You don't want to see this audience angry. I want to thank you both so much for being here. Thank you for sharing this film with us. Thank you for making this film.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you. Thank you to the JCC.
All. Get home safe and read some good books.